Hello to all of you. I'm Rebecca Sweeney, Senior Director of Programs and Policy for the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association. And I want to thank you for making time to join in this WCMA members only webinar focused on how you can achieve cost savings through greater energy efficiency. Just a little housekeeping before we begin. First, please be sure you're muted so that we can avoid interruptions during today's presentations. If you have any questions during our program, just type them into the chat box in your Zoom control panel. Now here's a look at our agenda. Mark Stover, Program Operations Manager for Focus on Energy, will detail the reasons and resources available for projects that will increase dairy processors' energy efficiency. Yes. Then we'll shine a spotlight on Galle cheese, detailing how they worked with Focus on Energy with President and CEO Steve Beekle and Maintenance Manager Dan Sabelko, sharing advice for their colleagues in industry who are considering similar efforts. We'll be sure to set aside time for our presenters to field your questions, and we'll close with a look at resources available in other states and at the federal level. Now, it's a pleasure for me to introduce our first featured speaker, a leader in the field of commercial energy efficiency, who with his colleagues at Focus on Energy has worked with many WCMA members, from Belgioso cheese to Meister cheese, Sartori, Sargento, Great Lakes cheese, Masters Gallery Foods, and as we'll detail soon, Galle cheese, to help them achieve business growth that's better for the planet and better for their bottom line. Mark Stover, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. It's great to be with you all. Let me share my screen here for you. So thanks for that introduction. I wanted to let you all know today that there's a lot of things going on at Focus on Energy. There's always new things, new updates, new changes. I'm going to bring you today what is true as of now, but keep tuned in to Focus on Energy at focusonenergy.com in order to stay up to speed, stay abreast with all the things that are changing and the new programs that are available. I'll mention it now, and you may notice that I'll mention it at least once or twice again. But do you all have an energy advisor? Everybody here who is a company, a cheesemaker, you all have an energy advisor with Focus on Energy. If you don't know who that person is, feel free to contact me. My contact information will be on the last slide of today's presentation. And I can help get you connected. Your energy advisor can make sure that you are also kept aware and up to speed on all the things that are going on at Focus on Energy. So let's get started. Just in case, let's make that go forward. There we go. Just in case you're not like me and don't live inside the Focus on Energy program, and you haven't heard of us before, which is very possible. Let me just give you a little bit of background to level set. So Focus on Energy has been around for about 20 years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year. Focus on Energy is the statewide energy efficiency and renewable resource program for the state of Wisconsin. And unlike many other states, Wisconsin is unique in the fact that we have a sort of a cooperative program for energy efficiency in this state. In many states, the utility that serves you is the one that you get your energy efficiency services from. In Wisconsin, all of the investor-owned utilities and most of the municipals and co-ops around the state have come together to create this Focus on Energy program. And the value of that really is that for any company anywhere in the state, regardless of how rural you might be, you have as much access to the statewide energy resources as a manufacturing company in the suburbs of Milwaukee or in Green Bay in the Fox Valley. So this is a way to level set resources for everybody in the state, which seems to be working pretty well, actually. The Focus on Energy program does have a residential side as well as a business side. And we're only going to talk about the business side today because that's what you guys are representing. But certainly everybody on the call today has a residence in the state. And you should check the Focus on Energy website for the focus programs that support your residents. You can get things like free, well, not free, but you can get some things like free light bulbs. You can get support for smart thermostats. You can get home energy audits, all kinds of stuff. So check out focusonenergy.com for your home as well. On the business side, there are basically two paths that businesses follow in order to get support from Focus on Energy. One is what we call a prescriptive or standard type of incentive, and the other is a custom incentive. Now, I'm going to use the word incentive today, and some people have the sense that maybe what Focus on Energy is doing is providing rebates. Rebates may be true more on the home side, but on the business side, we're trying to incent or make it possible for a company to take advantage of energy efficiency opportunities that without the grant from the program, they might not otherwise be able to do. So rather than a rebate per se, this is an incentive to try to help you make a good ROI on your investment in energy efficiency. So that's why things need to be planned up front. In addition to the incentive programs, both custom and prescriptive, there's lots of education resources that are available. You can get information about what's going on with other energy resources around the state and around the country. So again, focusonenergy.com should be bookmarked by now on your browser. And of course, the program people would love to have me tell you, and that's why it's a bullet point there, that it really is a good investment. The money that goes into this program comes from ratepayers, from every one of you, and that money is marshaled together to support the incentives in the program, which returns about a 4-to-1 ratio. So it's a pretty good return on investment. All right, let's jump into it here. Prescriptive incentives, I'll talk about these for a little bit. Prescriptive incentives are basically straightforward. Typically, a company is looking at either replacing or upgrading some type of technology that they've got. Maybe you can see in the 4 different types of catalogs we've got, might be in HVAC, plumbing, lighting, process systems, commercial refrigeration. There are in those catalogs standard measures that can be accessed if you, for instance, put in VFD motors on some of your drives, or you put in a new boiler system, or you're replacing lights or lighting systems. All of those things come with a standard understanding of what the energy savings is going to be. So basically what you do is you fill out the application, or you can work with your energy advisor to help fill out the application and send it in. You just have to send it in 60 days, no more than 60 days after the project is installed in order to get the incentive. And at the link in that presentation here, it'll actually take you to where those catalogs are. Rebecca has a copy of the slides that I'm presenting here, and maybe she can make that available to people. Or if not, you guys can also contact me. I'm happy to do that. So that's the basics of prescriptive incentives. It's pretty straightforward. Custom incentives, on the other hand, are designed to help the company that is doing something perhaps unique, or doing something that is beyond just a replacement of technologies. And there's a variety of different things that can be done here. This is where the energy advisors, your energy advisor, really shines, because all the energy advisors are experienced people in industry. Most of the folks in our program who work with cheesemakers, for instance, actually have food processing backgrounds. So they understand what it's like to be on the floor. They understand what kinds of constraints and what kinds of resources most companies have. So they're there. Those EAs, those energy advisors, are there to help make the case, help define what the project's going to be. And you'll hear more about that when Steve talks a little bit later. If you're doing a custom project, you do need to get pre-approval. So you don't want to get a project started and then go, oh, maybe I should have talked to Focus on Energy. That's too late, because then it's not an incentive anymore. You would have done it even without the money that Focus could provide. So talk with your energy advisor, make a plan, put together a schedule of what you want to get done in the coming year, and he or she can then help you with making custom incentive grant workbooks put together. So for those of you that are counting the dollars here, the incentives for custom projects are based on these numbers: $100 per kilowatt or peak kilowatt reduced, 4 cents a kilowatt hour, and 80 cents a therm. Projects have to have a simple payback period of anywhere between 1 and 10 years. Last year, when we were doing in the first, I guess, 2 years ago, actually now, when we were in the first year of the pandemic, we reduced that from 1.5 years to 1 year, just to make it a little bit easier for people to get over that hurdle, just to make it a little bit easier to access the program. And that's sustained. That's still offered here in 2022. And also the project caps are $300,000 per project or $400,000 per customer per year. So we would love to see everyone on this call, every one of the companies on this call, maximize that $400,000 per year, because the energy savings that you create is what we're all about. Now, having said that, there is a bonus available too. Let me just jump to the next slide because it's outlined there a little bit more. So right now through June 30th, there is, and this actually started last year, so it's carried over into 22. There's a bonus on top of what you would normally get for your custom project. And that bonus is up to $20,000. It requires pre-approval. So if you don't already have a project in the works, you need to get pre-approval using the help of your EA before the end of June. And then the project also has to be completed before the end of October this year. So it's now is the time, because I know a lot of projects that are going to require you to be purchasing new equipment or purchasing additional equipment and bringing that in. Those purchase processes are being affected by the supply chain. We've seen people seeing 4 to 10 times the length of time that it normally would take to get materials in, being restricted now because of the supply chain issues that we're facing. So it's never too early to make a call to your energy advisor, talk to them about what you want to get done, get a pre-approval for that custom project, and make yourself eligible for that additional $20,000. There's also programs that are specifically for the rural industrial customers. If you are wondering whether you qualify as a rural business, it's all dependent on your zip code. And if you go to the Focus on Energy website and you look for rural industrial, you'll find that there's a little table there. You can look up your zip code and see if it's on there, then you're eligible. It's not exactly what you might think that rural is. I know, for instance, that Mercury Marine in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin is considered rural for the purposes of this program. So, so definitely check. If you're in a city or a town somewhere and you think, well, we're probably not rural, you might be. The rural industrial program is designed to support work that hard-pressed companies are doing. We realize that it's hard to get things done. Maintenance managers are already busy doing the things that they normally do. Who has time to do an additional set of work for these incentives? So it comes with a staffing incentive, a staffing grant that is supposed to offset the cost of the time that you would take in order to do some of these kinds of projects with us. So that's $25,000 max per customer. And this program will last through the end of 2022. If you were involved in the program back in 21, you'll need to re-enroll in 22 unless you already did that. Many of our customers re-enrolled again at the end of 21 just to sort of get a jump on things. So again, check with your energy advisor, take a look at whether or not your location is a rural qualified location, and see if you can take some advantage of that. In addition to the regular staffing grant, there's also a special program called RISE. Every program has to have a fun acronym, right? So the Rural Industrial Striving for Efficiency program is also available in 22. It's a carryover from 21. You're eligible for up to $15,000 in additional incentives if you're enrolled in this program. Again, talk to your energy advisor. This program is designed to help customers kind of move to that next level of a strategic energy management approach. And it's really geared for the larger customers, but ask your EA. There's always opportunities here to take a look at that. Additional opportunities. Let's go through some of these. The project assessment incentive. This is a program that we've had for a long time, But in 2021, we increased that assessment, that total assessment value to $15,000. It had been $7,500. So what we do is we match up to $15,000 now the cost of an assessment that you hired done. Typically here you're looking at something sort of specialty. You want to bring in somebody who's really knowledgeable, maybe more knowledgeable than your EA about a refrigeration project, and you want them to do an assessment to identify what the return on investment is. They're going to charge you $25,000 to do that, but with the PAI grant, you can get matched up to 15th half or up to $15,000. So if it's a $25,000 cost from that consultant, we can match it up to $12,500. You get that makes it easier for you to get that study done, and hopefully it makes it easier for you to make the decision to go ahead and make that investment then too. But this program has a sunset here in the middle of the year, oddly. It was designed last year to sunset after June 30th of this year. So you can still get the 50% cost up to $7,500, but it's not the $15,000 anymore. And that deadline is for completion of the assessment. So your consultant has to have their project complete and provided to you before June 30th. So again, time is of the essence if you want to take advantage of that. I mentioned strategic energy management earlier, and that is a program that we've been running for several years. This is designed to help companies that kind of want to take it to the next level and create a strategy based on the ISO standard for energy management systems. It pays 2 cents and 20 cents, as you can see, for any kind of operational changes. So this doesn't require you to invest in capital equipment. This can be things that you do that are different in terms of your policies, your procedures, making sure doors are closed at night, making sure lights are off when not being in use, all that kind of stuff. We also offer, as I mentioned earlier, there's education programs available from Focus on Energy. There are also best practices guides that are available in PDF form on the website for all those different types of business areas. And if I haven't mentioned it before, you have an EA, an energy advisor, who is available to help you. And these people have terrific experience. They're subject matter experts in a lot of things. And the nice thing about the Focus on Energy program is that subject matter expertise from the program is available to you free of charge. It's part of just being a state of Wisconsin resident. So that's what we have in terms of the programs that are current. I've mentioned energy advisors, also trade allies. I know we've got a number of our valued trade allies on the call today. If you're not sure who your energy advisor is, or if you're not sure where do you find an official trade ally of the program that can help you, there's the website, there's the site locations themselves, in fact, to go take a look. So I encourage you to look at that as well. Couple of slides left here. What's new in 22? Basically, if anybody has had experience with having to do reservation codes in the past, we're not doing those anymore. We're just getting pre-approvals for any measure now. So you can get pre-approvals sometimes in doing a prescriptive project. They're always required for customs, but instead of doing this odd reservation code that people had to remember, we just do a pre-approval and then you're done. The other changes that are significant, RECIP, that's the renewable energy program that that was separate. It was a grant or a RFP-based program where 3 times a year there'd be a proposal that would go out. You'd propose wanting to do something with renewable energy, and you either got the grant or you didn't. We've changed that now, made it much easier. We've turned all of that into either prescriptive or custom projects. The nice thing about, so they can be treated just the way that any other project is. The nice thing about the RECIP program, though, is you'll notice those incentive rates are a little bit higher than they are for custom. And that's because we're trying to work real hard to make sure that we're doing as much as we can with renewable energy in the state. But you'll notice also that the program is, or that the projects are capped at the same cap that you'd have for any other kind of custom project. So RECIP gets a little simpler and pays a little better. I will say one other thing I learned on a call this morning, and that is that there is some carryover budget from 2021 still available in 22 for renewable projects. So please talk to Focus on Energy, talk to your energy advisor. If you're interested in something with respect to renewables, there's money available. Finally, The new thing that we've done here in 2022 is provide a request for proposal, an RFP, that is different from ones that you may have seen before. This one was announced on December 10th, and the first round is due January 28th. The next two are due in April and July. So January 28th is coming right up. You may not be able to get to this program by January 28th, but there's still 2 rounds to go. The idea here is that you may have a project that the 4 cents a kilowatt hour just isn't going to cut it. It isn't going to make the ROI. You're going to need 6 in order to make it a doable project. You put a response to this RFP together saying, here's what you're going to do. Here's how much energy you're going to save. Here's what cost it's going to be. And here's the incentive rate that you need to have in order for this to cash flow for you. I've showed the evaluation criteria there. Cost effectiveness is key. So if you say it's going to take you $3.50 a kilowatt hour, that's probably not going to be cost effective, but you might kick it in, who knows? But you want to keep that, you want to keep cost effectiveness in mind. That's a key element. The savings potential is the second heaviest weight. So right there is 75% of your score. And then of course, if you're creating impact and getting the project completed within before the end of 2023, that gets you the extra points. So the unique thing about this particular RFP is that, like I mentioned with RECIP, it was typically, if you went ahead and put your proposal in, they came back to you and said yes, no, the thing was done. No more conversation. In this case, and I'm looking at an actual copy of the RFP here. In this case, when you sign the RFP, there's a little box you can check at the bottom under your signature that says, if Focus rejects my proposal, please send me an incentive counteroffer for consideration. So in other words, the program is willing to bargain just a little bit on this. That's unusual in RFPs if anybody's ever done those before. So definitely check the box, see if you can make the RFP work for you for this year for one of those projects that wouldn't cash flow otherwise. That is what I had to present today. I think I'm on time, hope so. There's my contact information, just mark.stover@focusonenergy.com, and my phone number 608-819-9041. Happy to take any questions after after our conversation is over here and after this program is done. Rebecca, back to you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mark. It sort of blows my mind how many different programs are really available, and you covered them in rapid fashion. So I think it's really important, the note that you made, I'll emphasize again, you have an EA. And Mark can help connect you with them. So if you want to talk through any of these programs and learn a little bit more, that can happen anytime on your schedule. So I'm going to transition now to share my screen. And we're going to hear some firsthand experiences from our friends at Galle Cheese. I'm sure a lot of folks on the line right now who've worked with Focus on Energy heard Mark speak and say, yep, that's our experience. This is a program we're familiar with, or we're going to use our past experience to try to use this new program that's available. But I know there are folks on the line today who've never worked with Focus on Energy before. And I bet that they're wondering what that process is like from a dairy manufacturer's perspective and whether it's really worth the effort. And so for that insight, we're really delighted to introduce WCMA President, Steve Beekle, who also serves as President and CEO of Galle Cheese in Durand, Wisconsin, along with Dan Sabelko, who works as maintenance manager there. Thank you both for joining us today. I know it's tough to get off the floor.
Thanks, Rebecca. So Rebecca had contacted, Galle Cheese about speaking with this. And as we kind of talked through it, I think it is a good fit because we're a smaller company. We don't have mechanical engineers or maintenance engineers on staff. We have, Dan and I, more or less doing this stuff for a long time. And we've worked with Focus on Energy in fact, what I learned from Mark is that it's only been around for 20 years. My expectation was that we would have been working with them longer than that because we've been involved with them for a long time. So some of the very first projects I worked on, but honestly, for the last 10 years, Dan's probably done everything that we've done here. So But we just wanted to talk to you today about, our experiences. We have a couple examples of projects that we've done with them. And I think the big thing is just to let everybody know that it's very easy to work with them. You get them information and they kind of run with it. Like Mark said, you have an energy advisor. If you don't know who that is, you should know by the end of today, because they're great to work with. It's really easy. So if you want to go to the next one. So kind of to our surprise and Dan's surprise, in 2018, we won the Energy Efficiency Excellence Award from Focus on Energy. And at that time, Dan was mostly involved with them. So Dan had accepted the award, and I think maybe that's how Rebecca got onto us presenting. But when we look back at that, it kind of makes sense. I mean, in 2017 alone, as a small company, we had completed more than 6 projects. We were able to, the projected annual savings from those projects was to save us over $20,000 a year. And then we actually earned over $9,000 in incentives just for those projects that we completed then. And we've been working with it for a long time. So I think that's part of it. Dan, if you have anything to add to that, I guess.
Yeah, it was nice to win the award, and then you were kind of surprised to win it. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get involved in these projects. A lot of the paperwork and everything, your EA or someone at Focus on Energy will fill a lot of it out. And basically, most of the time, you just have to sign them and scan them and send them back over to them. So it's easy to get involved, and looking back through these projects that we're going to talk about here. I mean, we projected to save quite a few dollars, and actually the incentives, some of them paid for half of the project. So
yeah, and to Mark's point earlier, I think that's the big part of it is some of these are no-brainers you're probably going to do yourselves, but you might as well take advantage of. But other ones, the incentive is what makes it feasible from an ROI perspective, or maybe you financially need some money to help get you over the top to do them. But it's pretty straightforward. So we've got a few examples of what we did. I think it helps to see kind of total spend, what some of the incentive total was, and then what the projected annual savings are. And like Dan said, the energy advisor does really a lot of the work. It's just from our end, they want to know like room temperature, what you're heating the water temperature to. Some of like for this example here, this was a washer that was in a refrigerated area. So we were heating the water up to wash, and then it would sit for 10, 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour. And by the time it sat that long, the water was cooling back down, and we're heating up the room. So on this one, we kind of got a dual purpose where we're able to insulate the washer and the COP tank. It makes the wash water stay longer hotter without having to reheat it, and it also kept the room cool. So in this example, you can see that the total spend for the insulation was $6,900. Focus on Energy gave us an incentive of $1,757, and then the projected annual savings was $1,662. So for a little bit of work, this was probably one that honestly I don't know if we would have done without. It's not a huge payback.
Yeah,
there were some other advantages that went along with doing this, but the incentive kind of really helped us decide we wanted to take on this project.
Right,
it's fair.
Yeah, it's a good project, and I'm glad we did it. And and the incentive was real nice, and they actually help you find your numbers too on when the payback is, how long the payback's going to be. You don't have to try and calculate all that out yourself. Like Steve said, I mean, there's, especially with custom incentive, there's always a lot of questions, but they're pretty easy to gather the information for and move the project forward.
That's a good point. Like for a small company like us, we don't have engineers. There's some of the stuff that we can calculate and understand the savings ourselves, but that would have been a good example of one that, we're not really sure what the payback would have been because there's so much information that goes into it. So utilizing the engineers that Focus on Energy is helpful for us at times too. And this is just another one we did, just some general, insulating up steam pipes and some cooling pipes. In this place is a glycol chiller. unit that we have. So we insulated some cooling pipes. Project spent on this one was $3,600. You can see in this one, the incentive was $1,800. So it was a really good incentive, right? To have them pay for half of it. And then we're going to save $1,062 a year anyway. So this was a really good return on investment, and another good project. So,
Right.
The boiler burner upgrade. This was one that Dan was working on. I had left the Galle for a little while and was coming back, and we were in the process of upgrading boilers. This whole project was really good. It's not all captured in this particular slide, but we put new burners on 2 old boilers, and when we looked at it, for those of you may be going through it, boiler technology hasn't changed a whole lot, but burners have changed, a great amount. So these burners are 10-to-1 turn down. They run very, very efficiently. But I think maybe this was more for controls, Dan. The project spent for the controls, for linkageless controls that allow it to kind of run, from 10% to 100%, was $9,100. The incentive was $2,020, and then they project, almost $3,000 a year of savings too. But that was a really good project. So
Yeah, it really had helped out even our cheese making side, because the controls on the old boiler, you're either in low fire or high fire, and then it would once in a while would shut down, and by the time the boiler went to restart, purge, and start up again, we were actually maybe a little low on steam pressure. And there were probably some other controls we could have went with, but the controls that we have on there now, like Steve said, it's a 10-to-1 turn down, so it'll go down to a very low idle before it'll actually shut off. And typically, maybe it starts up, or actually only stops once a day while we're in production, and kind of going to CIP for the day. So it has really helped out with even the production side. Everything runs a little smoother and everything else.
Yeah, pasteurizing and everything else are just running much more consistent. So it's good project overall. This is one, changing light bulbs. That's an easy one, or lights. This is a good example. We replaced the metal halide lights in our brine room with LEDs, and LEDs have gotten, there's light. If you've been involved with this, lights have changed a lot over the last few years, and LEDs are really great. They've gotten a lot better, and I think the price is coming down more. So it really makes sense, if you haven't looked at this, to look at it closely. But for this, we, $7,200 spend. Incentives are $1,900, but if you look at the projected savings, it's substantial to do this. And with the incentive, at this point, why wouldn't you do it? So.
Yeah, this particular one is in a refrigerated room. Those anybody who's worked with those metal halide lights know they give off quite a bit of heat. So plus you're heating the room, they seem fairly inefficient. When these LEDs aren't giving off much heat. So that's kind of where this one was a custom incentive, and so that's where a lot of the savings came in there.
And this was just a small example, but when you get in the mindset of trying to save and do things, we were putting a hot water heater in for our retail store, and the location we were going to put it was where we have some compressors, refrigeration compressors. So there was a lot of heat in that area. So when we did it, we had an option of buying this hybrid water heater where it actually pulls heat from the air to preheat the water, and then in return cools the area too, so the compressors run better. So this one, and again, it wasn't a huge incentive, but there was other benefits that helped us make the decision, like the cooling in the area, so the other compressors ran better. So there's some more payback there that's not necessarily captured in the project too. But this one, we spent $4,300 on the hot water heater, and then they gave us $569. So it's one of those things where it's not a huge amount of money, but it's pretty easy to get that money too, and it helps. So.
Yeah, I think this one was prescribed. So
okay. And then so there's just a few projects that we've done in the last couple of years, and then but the other thing too is like the prescribed, the prescribed. So if you're thinking about things like if you're going to replace a starter contactor in the plant with the VFD, that's a no-brainer. They'll give you some incentives for that. The bigger the motor, the bigger the incentive is.
Yeah,
The big VFDs are pretty substantial, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Right now, Dan wrote down a couple things that we were getting, switch from a metal halide to an LED, it's $50 for each fixture. Steam traps he talked about, in the plant, if you have a steam trap that's leaking, you're losing steam, you're losing energy. This is a good way. There's a huge payback on that. Plus, they're going to give you $100 if you fix them too. So it's another kind of no-brainer. One thing that Dan has just done a bunch of, if you want to talk about that tube type DM.
Yeah,
LED.
The T8 lights that we have in the plant, in a couple of rooms that we have, we switched the bulb style over to the type B LEDs, and they're direct wire, either for 120 volts or 277. Possible maybe they accept other voltages, but they're so you can remove your ballast from the light and just direct wire them. So you can eliminate your light ballast. So if you do have a failure down the road too, it's not the ballast. I know if you're a maintenance person, it's a pain when you got to change a ballast. It makes maintenance a lot easier. You get better light and a more efficient light by doing that. $2 incentive each bulb the last time we did that. So that one's a nice one. I like that. So
yeah, and the incentives. So I think Dan said an LED bulb is $11. A regular T8 now is around $5.50. So there's a little bit of spread that $2 helps cover it. But the big one on that too is your maintenance guy is not standing on a ladder upside down trying to put a ballast in, every other month. So there's other advantages too. So it's a good one. And then Mark talked about the rural incentives. We thought that should be spoken about. It's another nice advantage. But Mark covered that pretty well. And the other thing too to consider is, periodically the company providing power, whether we're on Excel Energy, but some of the cooperatives locally will also have some incentives too. So it's good to keep an eye on that too. Sometimes they'll give you some incentives for changing out bulbs or other things. Right. So I guess at the end of it all, it's a really easy program to take advantage of. We don't do a lot with grants here personally, but we've done a lot with this program. It's just it just becomes something when we think about if we're going to do things, Dan's kind of the mindset that we always check and focus on energy, see what's out there. Sometimes it's enough to put us over the top, so we're going to do it, or we'll do it sooner. So it's super easy. It saves money. The incentives help, and then it's sustainability. From the standpoint of sustainability, it's just good for the environment. It's good for everything that we need to and want to do today. So I guess if there's any questions.
Steve, Dan, that was an amazing presentation. I love that there was so many details in showing that. I mean, most of the projects, I was doing the quick math in my head, they were really paying for themselves somewhere between 2 and 5 years out. And so for anybody doing some long-term planning, I feel like bells should be going off and saying, if you're not involved in this now, just like you have on your slide here, take advantage of the program. Thank you for being so open and sharing what your experience has been and what your cost savings has been, and the challenges and actually relative ease in participating. I think that's really a valuable perspective, and we appreciate it so much. We also appreciate that you're willing to join Mark from Focus on Energy in our question and answer session, which will begin now. I want to remind everybody on our webinar that you may send me your questions directly via the chat. I won't say your name, but I'll be happy to pose that on your behalf if you'd like. We're going to begin with questions that were pre-submitted by WCMA members. The first question, can Focus on Energy help us evaluate what energy efficiency projects would make the most sense for our business? I suspect we've heard the answer, but maybe Mark, you could detail a little bit more how that process works.
Yeah, I can give a general perspective on that, and Steve and Dan could even talk about more detail. Basically, if a company is interested in doing something with regard to energy efficiency, or they're interested in, as Steve said, sustainability. They ask their energy advisor, what can we do here? How can we make this make some sense? That's what the energy advisor is really for. The energy advisor is there to provide guidance, technical assistance, help through the paperwork process, just anything that's necessary in order to smooth the flow of value from the program to you as the customer. So that's a big part of what we do, is helping companies figure out that ROI. And it sounds like Rebecca can do that pretty well too. She's calculating 2 to 5 year savings off the data that Steve and Dan shared. Good job. You can come on over anytime, Rebecca, and help us out.
I'd love to learn more. All right, well, great. And Steve, Dan, anything to share about that process? Did you, you kind of said that a lot of times your EA was helping you fill out some of the application forms. Did you ever have anybody come in and sort of point out areas in which you could achieve some cost savings and maybe earn some incentives?
I don't know, I haven't, but Dan maybe.
Yeah, yes, we have in the past, you know, kind of looked at some things that would, you know, be good, and kind of just talked over, you know, a lot of things people were doing, and looked at some specific things that we had in mind. Yeah, I mean, they're always available to come out. So it's a good idea if you have questions, just to talk or meet with them and meet face to face if you want to do that these days.
That's great.
You know, Rebecca, I'm sorry to interrupt. Wanted to piggyback on something that Steve and Dan said earlier, and that is that, you know, also check with your utility, because there's oftentimes programs that they have available, including many of the utilities will do walkthroughs at your site. And oftentimes those walkthroughs are accompanied by a focus on energy advisor. So either the utility can do it, the focus on energy advisor can do it, or they sometimes do it together.
Wonderful. I can tell you all that we've got the questions flowing in the chat. So just so you know, we're going to pepper you. The very next question that we have, though, pre-submitted are grants for energy efficiency projects offered on a schedule, or is it a rolling system?
Well, this might be a question that relates to some of the RFP history that we've had in the past. Basically, the grants or the incentives that are available all the time. It works when you want. The only thing that comes on sort of a rolling system now is that new RFP that is the one that you can negotiate your incentive rate on. But otherwise, things are available when you want them or when you need them.
Wonderful. How complicated? Well, I think we've answered this. How complicated is the application process for Focus on Energy Support? Dan, Steve?
Very easy.
Pretty easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's wonderful to hear. We're going to go to some questions from the chat now. First, does the process start with an audit of the facility?
It can, just like we were talking about. It might be that a good way to sort of get a grip on what the opportunities are within a facility would be to have the energy advisor do a walkthrough. It's not required. If you're interested in doing something, you've got a perspective that you know, like Steve and Dan were talking about, you know, they had equipment that was used for heating that was in a cool area and it seemed inefficient. You know, it was an obvious one for them. You can start a project that way too, from what you're thinking about. Either way.
That's great to know. A question, how easy is it to measure the actual impact of these projects? We have very specific information from Steve and Dan. They know exactly what they received and what their cost savings were, but how easy is it to measure that? And what process do you have in place to validate that the savings actually occurred?
That is an interesting question. When we do a prescriptive or a standard measure, those are ones that have what is called deemed savings. So the calculations have already been done by energy engineers, and it's a standard understanding that if you replace a light bulb, you replace a metal halide with an LED, it will create this kind of savings. On the custom side, we do detailed calculations using all kinds of information. Sometimes it's environmental information around the plant itself. Oftentimes it's how is the technology going to be used, how many hours a year, for instance, under what kind of operating conditions. So they take all that into consideration and they do detailed calculations in an Excel workbook to support what we're claiming for energy savings. That's submitted, that goes through an approval process, and the incentive is paid. Then at the end of the year, there's an evaluator for the Focus on Energy program. The evaluator is Cadmus, a company called Cadmus, that comes in and evaluates, does a sampling of all the projects that have been done and double checks to make sure that the calculations that were done were either accurate or at least conservative in terms of the energy savings that were claimed. So there's kind of a triple process there where the energy advisor and the customer first come up with what they think they're going to save. It's approved through the process in creating the grant and then providing the incentive, and then it's triple checked by the outside evaluator, Cadmus.
Sounds like a pretty thorough process. Appreciate that answer. Mark, we're going to go right back to you. They're specifically asking for your perspective. What are some low-hanging fruit energy savings opportunities that you're most commonly seeing among dairy processors?
Well,
start.
I can give it a start, and then Steve and Dan's experience would be good on this too, I think. Obviously, like they said, lighting, it's still the #1 area that we're seeing energy efficiency in. Lighting is not just changing your light bulbs, but also changing perhaps the lighting control system that you might have, putting in occupancy sensors, things like that to make sure that lights are not on when they're not needed. So lighting's a big one. Boilers and burners, that's Steve and Dan's experience too. Boilers and burners is a big area where we see a lot of work being done. A couple of years ago, we had a special, we ran a special on VFDs for motors, and we found that it was remarkably well received. So there's lots of customers that are looking at having that motor not just run full out, 24/7, but being able to flex to the need. So putting in variable frequency drives or variable speed drives to their motors is another big area. I'd kick it over to Steve and Dan. What else do you guys see?
Well, one thing that we didn't talk about, we put in a variable speed air compressor too. It's been quite a few years ago, but that's a good one to look at if you have an air compressor that's stopping and starting or not running at full speed. That's a good one to look at, or just like Mark said, I guess any pumps or anything that does not need to be run full speed. I mean, something you're throttling on the output side. I mean, you probably want to take a look at putting a VFD on there. Anything to add, Steve?
No, I think pretty much touched on it, but like lights, that's something, we've been working with Focus on Energy for lights for a long time, and just the technology of lights have gotten so much better that it really makes sense to do it now. There was times we looked at a few different new lights to change them out, and it just wasn't quite right, but the lights are so much better now. They last so much longer. It really makes sense. VFDs are kind of a no-brainer. It saves energy, and there's a payback there. It's way better on the motor, but you can just make stuff run so much better with a VFD than not. So it's a really good one, and the incentives are there. So I think just a few of those, heating and cooling, anything you're heating and cooling, take a look at it. So,
well, great ideas. Great ideas.
What,
we have time for one more. Oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, just one quick one. Dan reminded me, compressed air. There's no factory that I'm ever aware of that has all their compressed air leaks, repaired. There's always leaks to be done. So, and you can get an incentive to not only have somebody come in and check, but then the repair also brings you another incentive. So compressed air leaks is another one.
Great ideas all. One final question from the chat, and then we'll head on to some other resources. We do have some folks on the line that are outside of Wisconsin as well. So this question is, do you work with equipment manufacturers and suppliers in helping to develop projects when quoting a customer? And do you work with the suppliers directly on that? Can you describe the process if so? So are you always working with the dairy manufacturer? Are you sometimes working with perhaps someone who could help them install these pieces of equipment or make some of these changes?
Yeah, so the Focus on Energy program has a trade ally program that is designed to vet people, organizations, companies that can provide services that would be of value to Focus on Energy customers. So there's a trade ally outreach that goes on, and we're supporting the trade allies in terms of what the new programs are in Focus on Energy and what sort of things they might want to be looking at in terms of their outreach to their customers. Typically, when we're working with a company like Galle cheese, they already have somebody that they work with. There's somebody local perhaps, or there's somebody that they've been working with for years, and we'll partner with that organization as a trade ally to the program. If that particular vendor is not already an official registered trade ally, of course we encourage them to be. Trade allies receive support in terms of their marketing of the Focus on Energy brand and the things that they're doing. So it's worth looking into if you're a vendor. But yes, that absolutely, that's how a lot of these projects get done, because ultimately the implementation, the actual installation of the program is going to require that use of that involvement of the vendor. So yep.
Practically
Hopefully that
speaking,
answers that
Mark,
question.
should an interested supplier contact you, or should they contact their client, their customer, and encourage them to reach out to Focus on Energy? What's the preferred method?
Either. There's lots of trade allies that will reach out to their customers, market, and say, we've got something new in terms of a better compressor for you. We've been in your plant many times, and we realize you're looking for something like this. Well, we've got some new technologies, and some of the trade allies will actually operate almost like an energy advisor and provide support in putting the application together, those kinds of things. And in some cases, the incentive actually goes to the trade ally. The trade ally provides a rebate, or not a rebate, but a discount to the end customer that reflects that incentive that they've received. So the trade allies are typically fairly well integrated into the program. And so it can go either way. Either the trade ally can suggest that the customer talk to Focus on Energy, or sometimes they can do that conversation themselves.
All right, I know I said that was our last question, but I'm going to sneak one more in because I think it's interesting. I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to preface that this way. But this individual says, would Focus ever consider providing incentives for on-site nitrogen generation versus bulk cryogenic delivery? The site ends up using more energy for air compression, but more energy is saved at the cryogenic gas plant and no motor fuel is used for transport. So this is somebody who's thinking outside of the box at what the future might look like. And Mark, is there anything that you can say in response to that?
That sounds like a perfect opportunity for at least exploring a custom incentive. We do a lot of work with companies that are trying to look at alternative ways to manage their energy usage. And there's lots of work being done with biomass, for instance, right now, especially in food processing and in the cheese industry. What are you going to do with the whey, and how, what kind of things could you do with the various lagoons of material that are available? So that sounds like the kind of project that they would want to approach their energy advisor on and have a discussion. Great.
I love the openness. It's not something that you experience when working with all organizations. And that's so clear to me that Focus on Energy is ready to work with people on ways to be more efficient. So what a wonderful message to deliver. Thank you, Mark. We do want to take just a couple of moments to talk a little bit about other resources. We want to stress that Focus on Energy is not the only resource available to dairy processors interested in support for their energy efficiency projects. All 50 states have energy efficiency programs offering various degrees of support, and they're set up in different ways. Not all are set up like Focus on Energy. But those members who are operating outside of Wisconsin can find a directory of programs on the U.S. Small Business Administration's website. Literally all 50 states are listed there, and any energy efficiency program that exists is listed with links. And we'll be sharing this via email with all of our registered participants and on WCMA's website, cheesemakers.org. The federal level, just wanted to take a minute to overview that the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 did make permanent tax deductions for energy efficient commercial buildings. And there are deductions of up to $1.80 per square foot for owners or designers of commercial buildings or systems that can demonstrate a 50% reduction in their energy usage through improvements to heating, cooling, ventilation, hot water, and interior lighting systems. And there are also partial deductions for certain qualifying measures of up to 60 cents per square foot. And there's a lot of information, really complete details and host of resources associated with these deductions available at energystar.gov. So we encourage you to check that out as well, particularly if you're planning something new. We also wanted to note that the U.S. Department of Energy has launched a program called Better Plants, which partners with manufacturers who voluntarily set a goal to reduce energy intensity. Typically, that's by 25% over a decade across all U.S. operations. And Better Plants provides everything from free software to trainings, diagnostic tools, some financial resources, networks so that you can work with your counterparts across industry, and recognition for manufacturers who are achieving their efficiency goals. And we do want to stress that it's important to tell your customers about ways that you are being efficient. Sustainability matters to today's consumers, we know that. So that's a function both that focus on energy offers and also programs like Better Plants through the Department of Energy. And we welcome your questions. If you have them, get in touch with your friends here at WCMA at any time. We also would like to, as our program draws to a close, invite you to join us again in February when our members only webinar will focus on new resources, millions of dollars available through the state of Wisconsin to boost Wisconsin's dairy export endeavors. Encourage you to learn more and register today at cheesemakers.org. Finally, I want to thank you for spending part of your day with us and for your engagement with WCMA. We value you as members and we're here to help. Have a great day.